and welcome to Long Dog Book Reviews. I'm Shelby, and this is Kiwi. Today we're going to be discussing The Glass Castle, a memoir by bestselling author Jeannette Walls. This is one of my favorite books. I found it nearly impossible to put down. It's a tough read in the sense that it includes some very hard-to-believe content and some very disturbing content. It doesn't go into graphics. In fact, the whole tone of the novel isn't negative in any way. It's up to the reader whether they want to read it as more of an adventure and a tale of resilience, or more of an expose of what could only be called horrible and delusional parents. So it starts off with Jeannette living on Park Avenue, and she is driving in a taxi, or she's riding in a taxi one day, and she sees a woman digging through trash, and then she realizes instantly that it's her mother. Then it goes back to when she's about 3 years old, and she gets badly burned while trying to cook hot dogs for herself and being ignored by her mother, and she ends up in hospital. Her father decides to check her out without paying, in what he calls Rex Wall style. So the family lives on the run. The dad is forever running from debt collectors. The parents have this idea that they want to live off the grid. They want to live a very unconventional life.
Ain't gonna be part of this system.
Without the real responsibility of making sure that their kids are provided for. So that's what makes this book a hard read. The kids are exposed to sexual abuse, bullying, starvation on multiple occasions. And it's really hard to decide which one of the parents is worse. Personally, I have different moments of the book where I'm like, okay, the dad's definitely worse, and then I'm thinking the mom's definitely worse. The dad is definitely the alcoholic. He orders away most of the family's money, but he's also willing to work, whereas the mother isn't. She takes a few teaching jobs, and then her kids are forced to get her out of bed, and the kids end up doing most of the work anyway, cleaning the classroom, grading papers, all the things that a teacher is supposed to do. Backing up a little bit, Rosemary has a teaching degree, but she doesn't really want to use it. She was pressured into getting it by her parents. And so she had a job to fall back on if being an artist didn't work out for her, as her art is her main passion and something that she values above all else, including her children. With Rex, he's a very intelligent man. He's working on a design for the Glass Castle, as the title implies, which is going to be a place where he can house his family and they'll live in complete luxury, which is the opposite of what they've been living in the whole time, which is squalor. And it's said a couple times in the novel, and the dad openly admits that Jeannette is his favorite child, so they do share a special bond, which is why she describes her dad in such affectionate terms, despite the terrible things that he does, which include burning down the family's Christmas tree, stealing Lori's money for college, he essentially pimps her out at one point. He leaves her vulnerable to sexual abuse. He blames his own son for the sexual abuse that he suffers at the hands of his grandmother, after which it's strongly implied that Rex himself was also sexually abused. As for Rosemary, she gorges herself on chocolate while her kids starve. She, again, refuses to work, refuses to protect the kids in any way when they get hurt, refuses to take the kids to the hospital when they're injured, and at one point, Brian nearly cracks his skull open, and Lori needs glasses, and she wouldn't pay for them, so the school ended up giving them to her for free, which was great. But yeah, in terms of everyday life, it's really interesting to read about just their experiences with other kids and their experiences with their own resourcefulness. And there's one point where Jeannette fashions her own braces out of rubber bands. There's also one story, it only took up a couple of pages, where one of Jeanette's friends is attacked by her mom's boyfriend and then later arrested for stabbing him to death. So because it's set in the 1970s and 80s, there's some racism involved. One good thing that the parents do is they teach their kids not to be racist, so there's that, although it isn't quite enough to make up for their shortcomings. But there's a sense at the end that Jeannette does really love her dad, and that that bond is more or less unbreakable even after his death. And if you listen to a talk by her brother, Brian Walls, which can be viewed here, Brian discusses his side of the story, which I think was really cool.
As far as the incidents, the occurrences, point at and say, I don't remember this happening, or I don't believe that this happened. If anything, I think she downplayed it a little bit.
I would have liked to have heard Lori's side, and their youngest sister, Maureen, unfortunately ended up being arrested for stabbing their mother. So there's that dimension as well. Yeah, it's more than anything just a very inspirational book. I would recommend it for anyone. I think it's good for ages 15 and up. This edition I got from Indigo, and it's the only one that I've seen so far. I haven't seen any other editions. All in all, It's a story that'll leave you feeling inspired. There was a movie adaptation that came out in 2017 that I would have to agree with most critics in saying that it didn't do the story justice. A lot of what happens in the book is very hard to show on screen because it involves abuse of children, situations that are really hard to put on film. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just something that wouldn't really work on a big screen. That being said, there was one scene from the book that I'm glad they included in the movie, which was that there's one point where the kids were starving, as you'll see frequently throughout the book. The kids need to forage for food. They'll often get food from friends' houses or from the dumpster or from the garbage at school, which is as disgusting as it sounds. But there's one scene where the only food left in the house is a tin of margarine, or a tub of margarine, and some sugar. So the kids mix the margarine and the sugar together, and they eat that, and then get in trouble for it. And in the movie, they changed it to butter, which is obviously a little bit less disgusting. But there's a few other scenes I think they could have included in the movie. And one of those scenes is during another bout of starvation where the kids haven't eaten for about 3 or 4 days, and they notice that their mom is strangely gaining weight. So one time they're all sitting around in the living room, and the mom keeps retreating under a blanket. And then at one point, Brian says, "Are you chewing something?" And then Rosemary says, "Oh, I'm just exercising my jaws," like anyone would ever believe that. He removes the blanket, and then they find out she was eating a giant chocolate bar, and she probably had been doing that consistently for the past several weeks. There's a lot in this book about managing money. Jeannette learns to manage money from a young age. She ends up becoming more or less the head of the household. And another really callous action by the dad, and callous isn't even strong enough of a word, is when he sets Jeannette up to be sexually abused. She isn't actually abused, but it very easily could have happened, and he just doesn't seem to care. So the way that Rosemary and Rex see the world is really hard to understand. Maybe it's not if you grew up in that kind of environment. And I've got a treat for Kiwi here. So I hope that you enjoyed this review, and I hope that you enjoy the book if you get around to reading it. And if not, let me know if there's anything that I missed. Let me know if there's anything that you wanted to add or any points that you wanted to contest. And let me know which book you'd like me to review next. Have a great day. Bye. Have a great day.